It's Rob Cosgrove with Remote Backup Systems. Thanks for coming today. Today's webinar is about how to create and brand a client installer using the RBS Partners portal. A little bit of housekeeping. First of all, when you get, if you've got a question, then please type it in the section in your console there that's called questions. And somebody here will read it and either respond to you by text or I will respond to you by voice. Let's see. I don't think there are any. Others. I think that's it. If anybody has problems hearing me, let me know by typing a question in there, and I'll try to adjust the audio from here. Okay, here we go. I don't know how many of you have been to the RBS Partners portal. The Partners portal has some really neat tools in it. The one we're going to take a look at today, well, actually two of them we're going to have a look at today are the graphics conversion tool and the customize and brand the client installer tool. And if you've never been to the portal, here's how you get there. You can go to our webpage at remote-backup.com and pick Partners and then Partners portal. You can also log into the Partners forum here, and it brings you to this page. Type in your email address and your password. When you first log into the portal, your password is your serial number. So after you get logged into the portal the first time, you can change that. Let's see. This is the first page in the Partners portal, and it shows you all kinds of things about your account here and about your RBS server's IP address, among some other things, your purchase date, your maintenance expiration date, your number of credits, your version number currently installed. The two tools we're going to have a look at today are the first two on the menu. I'm sorry, second two on the menu. That's the graphics conversion tool and the client customization tool. Let's go to the graphics conversion tool first. You know, when you brand your client software, you have the ability to change some of the graphics in there. You can change the About screen, the graphic that shows up on the About screen. You can also change the graphic that shows up on the splash screen. That's the one that opens the software. And you can also change all of the icons. And there are several icons where that they show up in different places. These icons will show up down here in the task bar in Windows. It'll show up in Windows Explorer whenever you explore to the exe files. These icons are actually burned right into the executable, so Windows picks them up and displays them as your own. When you first go into the portal, all of the icons and graphics that are in here are those for remote backup systems. It's our default icon. And to change those, you just select your graphics. I've got some graphics pre-selected for this. For icons, you can use a source graphic that's got dimensions of 1:1, that is equally tall as it is wide. If you want an invisible background on your icon, then start with a graphic that has an invisible background. The graphics conversion tool can take 140 different inputs, different types of graphic formats as inputs, so you can upload virtually anything of any size, and the tool will convert it to whatever you want. Let's pick a new icon image. Let me surf over to where I've got some of these. See, demos and graphics. Okay, let's see. I've got a, let's use these Infinity graphics. So I've got one called infinity-icon.png. This is a PNG image of 9.41 kilobytes. It's 271 by 270. That's close enough to square to work here. Now let's pick one for the, that's sufficient for all these icons. Now let's pick another one to be the source graphic for these images here, and that would be this Infinity graphic. So once you've got those loaded up, all you have to do is click Convert, and when you do that, it converts the images for you. Now this process can take up to about 2 minutes depending on how many of you are using the portal at one time. And again, if you want an image that has this image happens to have a white background, so it looks good on a white background. But if you have an image that is has a darker background, you may want to, or even white, you may want to eliminate the background from that. And what we're going to do in a future release of the portal, and not too long from now either, probably within 30 days, we'll have a check mark on this screen that will allow the portal to erase the background for you. Okay, so you can see that it has converted all these my graphics to the correct sizes. It's got this one for the About screen and this one for the splash screen. I have two options at this point. I can download the icons and images. If I click this link, that zips them all up and downloads them for me to use as source graphics for the RBS Manager, which also has also has a branding and customization tool, although it doesn't have as many features as the one on the portal. Or I can copy these graphics into my installer here on the portal, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click the Update button. So what that did was it took the graphics and it inserted them into my into the source for my client installers here on the portal. And that's all there is to this. Any questions about the graphics conversion tool, just go ahead and type them in there, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. It's pretty simple. That's all there is to it. One thing is, if you have a graphic that's highly detailed, it may not look good as an icon. This image does look good as an icon when it's simply reduced, because it's a really simple image. But if you have something more complicated with thinner lines in it, all this tool does is reduce it in size and convert its format to an ICO format for icons for Windows. So if it's highly detailed when it starts, then you'll lose those details when it shrinks. So be sure that you properly design your graphics so that it looks good when it's shrunk. Okay, so that's how that graphics tool works. Now let's go on to the Customize and Branding. That's the next option here on this menu. There are 6 pages here, and we're going to go through these in some detail. I'm going to skip only a few of them. So this is how it works. All right, let's go down from the top to the bottom. This is the product name of the product. You should enter the name of your software here. This is where you get to change the name of the software, and it shows up on different parts of Windows. It'll show up as in the captions of some of your form screens. It'll show up in the top part of some of the reports. It also shows up in Windows Explorer. It shows up in Add Remove Programs. So replace the name that we have here by default is Remote Backup, and you'll replace that with your own product name. Likewise, put your company name here. For some of the screen captions that don't display the name of the product, they'll display whatever you put here. This is the application directory. Typically, the Remote Backup software installs in a folder called C:"Program Files / Remote Backup, 2 words. You can change that. If you don't want that, you can change it to, in this case, I've changed it to Backup Safe. So this will install in Program Files in a folder called Backup Safe. John wants to know, John's got a question about the graphics. He says, does it matter what program is used to create the graphic? John, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. Just make sure it's a high-quality graphic. What I've found in playing with this tool is that graphics in the PNG format seem to work better. So you might, if you have a choice of format to write it out in, I think pick PNG format. This is the program folder. Windows well, I'll show you right here. On the help on the Windows Explorer, where it shows all of the programs, program folders that you have installed, this is the name of the program folder. This is the help title. Shows up on the as the caption for the icon for the help file. This is the publisher. Publisher is shown in Add Remove Programs, and it's a little difficult to replace that, but we've done it. So all you have to do is put your company name here, and you'll show up as a publisher in Add Remove programs. Likewise, the software owner shows up in the Add Remove programs, and so does the URL display. And I've changed all of this from the default, which was remote space backup, to a fictional company called Backup Safe. User license file. If you want to include a user license file in here, then put the title right here. User license file is displayed after the software license. The software license shows up first during installation, and that's the one where you have to pick I agree or I disagree. And if you pick I disagree, it won't install. You have the option to also include your own terms of service or your software license agreement or whatever you want to put in there, and it displays just like the one previous, and it has an I accept icon that allows you to click that. Let's see. Here's the company name that shows up in the some of the screen captions. This is the text at the top of the print key form. If you select to print the key file, when the key file changes, this is what shows. And this is the text at the top of the key file. The current version of RBackup supports, I think it's 6 languages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 languages. And it can support many more, but these are the only ones that we've translated so far. If you've got, if you need yours translated, contact me and we can add it. This is the display. Now remember these icons that we created over at the graphics tool? Here they are now copied into the installer, just like we did over there on the graphics conversion tool. And you can preview them here. There's a preview, or you can upload them again. Now this won't convert anything, but if you've got graphics that you know already work and you want to include them in the clients that you build on the portal, then upload them right here. In the advanced interface of the client software, there is a menu structure across the top. There is a help menu, and inside that help menu, you can add your own item if you want. So here you give it a caption, which would be, for example, Backup Safe Help Site, right? And then you give it a URL. That'll show up on the help screen, and when the customer clicks it, he'll be able to get there. You can also add a completely different top-level menu here if you wanted to have one called support, and this shows up just after the help icon. Then you put that here, and again you put the caption that shows up on the menu and the link that you want it to link to when they click it. And this is going to go away. So I'm going to save this just to make sure I keep it and then go on to the next page. You don't really have to save it between pages. I just feel a little more comfortable with it. Now, we can change a lot of the text that shows up in throughout the, mostly the installation. Mostly the installation. If the system needs to reboot after installation and before it'll run, if the system needs to reboot, then you can type your reboot text here. Otherwise, it uses the Windows default text. And let's see, this is the shortcut text. This is the name of the software. It's the shortcut text that shows up on the desktop. Whenever you install this software, it has some text that pops up. One of them is this one, Welcome to Backup Safe. If you don't put anything here, I think it displays Welcome to Install Shield, because Install Shield is that's the platform that we use to write the installers. This is also displayed by Install Shield, and it's one of the pieces of text that pops up first. The license title caption, the text for the I agree part of the installer, and the text for the I do not agree. Only about 3 or 4 of these have a company name or a software name in it, so in this case you'll want to change those. The rest of them just accept the defaults. There's another one that was changed. And there are a lot of these. I'm going to save some time by not going through any of them. This is where you set up, this is the backup sets tab, and right here you'll set up your default backup sets. You can set up as many as you want. It comes by default with one backup set programmed, and it's called default. If you need to add a new backup set, then click New Set. If you want to delete a set, click Delete Set. You can't delete the original set called default until you've added another one. If you add another one that's called a different name, then you can delete this one. So fill in all of the options that you want for your default backup set. In this case, I've got it set to full. I've got the backup location set to the RBS server, but I could also send it to a local mirror and to a cloud service if I wanted to. Or if any of you read my recent article in the blog, you know that you can do this. You can send it only to a cloud service, and in that case, it uses your RBS server only as an authentication server while it sends all of its data off to a cloud service like Mozy or Carbonite. All right, I'm going to click all these. And if you haven't read that, it's a pretty interesting article. It's the latest one on the blog at blog.remote-backup.com. Again, any questions, just let me know. I'm not going to go through the reasons for selecting a lot of these features because the webinar today is all about how to use how to do the customization and branding. We've got other webinars that have talked about why you pick once only or daily or weekly or on demand. Again, but I will answer questions. So set all of your defaults here. I typically select use the local system account for the Windows account information, and the power management, I typically select only this one, wake up the computer. Okay. This screen needs some explanation. The server address, IP address or domain name, this is the domain name or IP address of your RBS server, and that's how your client finds your server. I recommend that you not put an IP address here because IP addresses can change, and once you've put it in here, it can't be changed by remote. So if you put an IP address in here and then you change service providers for your internet and your IP address changes, you'll have to physically go to each client and change that in there. Instead of that, use a domain name here or use your server locator host name. That way you can change it without going out to your client sites. The server locator, one of the functions that it provides is a dynamic DNS service. So it basically what happens is your server software, if this is turned on, your server software reports up to our DNS service, and it changes your IP address. It can change it once every half second if it needs to make sure that all of your clients are able to find you. So if you pick your server up from one location and haul it to another location and plug it in, your clients will follow you over there within a half a second. You don't have to make any adjustments at all to it. It just works. Another thing you may want to do here is to stack up different servers. The RBackup has the ability to roll over to different servers, and you can have a whole bank of servers, and they can be local or they can be geographically distant. But the way to do this is you just put a semicolon and then you put another server to .rbs.com, server3.rbs.com. Okay, so in this arrangement, the client software will first try this server. If it fails to get a connection to that server, it'll try the next one, and if it fails, it'll try this one, and it'll start over again until it reaches one. What that's good for is failover. If your first server dies or your internet connection to it dies, all the clients will just automatically look for the second server, and it can be on an entirely different IP address in an entirely different state. It's also good for because the RBS server has the ability to throttle the number of connections it can accept simultaneously. This is also great for load balancing. So you could set your first server to accept only 100 simultaneous connections. So when the 101st connection comes in, it'll be refused actively, and the client will automatically roll over to the second and then the third server. Peter wants to know if there's a place to set how many backups to keep before overwriting. Yeah, Peter, there is, and it's on the previous screen. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back to that screen when I get done with this one and show you that. I shouldn't have skipped that. The command port is 2774. This is the default command port. It's a registered port assigned to RBS, and this is the one that our software listens on. You can change this. Some people use port 80 or 443 or 8080 or some HTTP common port. We've also seen people use port 21 for FTP here. But 2774 is a pretty safe port. There's hardly anybody on that, and like I said, it's registered to RBS, so I don't think anybody will be. The admin password is the password in the client software. If you have to do anything serious, like change the IP address or domain name of your server, or fiddle with some of the administrative features that users don't usually get a chance to see, this is the override password. There's a little hidden icon which I can show. I'll show you where it is later. There's a little hidden icon on the system, and when you double click it, it pops up and asks for a password. This is that password. This is the account group that you're going to assign this particular client installation to. This is the temporary backup path, and this is the bit backup reference path. A word about bit backup. Bit backup is our subfile backup technology. This backup technology can send just pieces of a file. So if you've got well, let's say for example you have an AutoCAD file that's 500 megabytes, and it gets changed daily, but only a couple of kilobytes of the file change. The bit backup can send just a couple of kilobytes across, and it'll save that. All the patches, these little files are called patches. All these patches are cumulative, so it's okay if you lose any one of them, as long as you don't lose all of them. You can still recover to a point in time. The bit backup reference path is by default set to the same path as the temporary path. We don't want you to use bit backup on all files, because when it runs, it has to create a signature file for reference. It's called a reference file, and it stores that locally. And the storage space for a whole disk full of reference files is a little bigger than the entire disk itself. So don't do it, because you'll run yourself out of drive space. The encryption method, I like to use AES-256. We have several. You can select from the old style DES or TDES. You can also pick Blowfish, which a lot of people love, and it's a variable key up to 440 bits. It's very, very secure. And then you've got 3 versions of AES. For compliance with HIPAA, AES-256 is more than they ask for. Okay, we've had some questions lately about automatic upgrades. One of the great features of this portal is that it can host your automatic upgrades for your client software. So if you set this up right from the beginning and you build your client installers on the portal and you click yes and then update from portal, the client software will update from the portal, and we host your updates for you. I'll show you another control associated with that later, but just do this and then select update from portal, and this is the update info URL, and this is the client link URL. Just defaults for that, they'll be correct. If, on the other hand, you don't want to update from the portal, but you want to update from your own web server, uncheck this and type in your URLs for your update info URL and for your client link. That's the executable. Whenever you build client software with the portal, it creates at least 2 files. It creates one file that's the one you asked for. So you ask for for example, a server version. It'll create the server version, but then it also creates a file called clupdate.exe. And that's an updater file. That's the file that can update anything. It updates all of your all of your versions. If you've got personal version deployed and desktop version deployed and server versions deployed, that clupdate.exe file is adequate to upgrade all of them whenever we issue an upgrade. All you have to do is come to the portal and build, and then you can download those and host them yourself, or you can leave it up on the portal, and the portal automatically will distribute it for you. Event logging. Event logging is off by default, and I can turn it on like this. What this does is event logging tells the client software to write all of its errors and notable events to the Windows logs, the Windows event logs, and that way you can read them with the log viewer, or you can also read it with remote management software like Kaseya, Spiceworks, LabTech, all that stuff. You can write rules based on it. You can have it automatically file a support ticket with your in-house help system if you want, if there's a problem. You can have it page you or notify you on different events, and that's a pretty cool feature. Another really cool feature is this one, digitally sign the executable. This portal has its own Class 3 code signing certificate, and what that does is after it builds the executable, and it also all the EXEs inside the installer and the DLLs, it code signs everything. This puts a digital wrapper around it that's self-authenticating, and it also, what it does is it ensures that your executable hasn't been changed since it was produced. So a signed EXE file that's downloaded from the internet and run by Windows shows you a whole lot fewer warnings than an unsigned executable. I'll show you that. I'll show you that after we build this, and we'll download it, and I'll show you the difference. The client lock section is for you to lock out different features on the client software. Some people don't want the users to be able to change their schedules. They want to set the schedules, and then the user has no access to it. If you want to lock schedules, just click that yes. If you want to lock the ability for users to add or change files to the backup set, turn that on. You can lock just about anything we have here, any of the major features. Copy to disk, if you don't want them to have access to that feature, just lock it. These are particularly useful if you're selling a low-priced personal edition of the software. A lot of the features in this software are big business features, like the SharePoint and the SQL and the Exchange server, System State, Active Directory, all that stuff is not going to be needed in personal use. And you may want to set it up so that it only backs up things from the user directory. And that would be things like personal files, anything that gets shuffled into the user directory. So in that case, you would want the ability to change or lock the file selection. That's this one right here, because you're trying to throttle the amount of data that your personal users can send to you. I don't know of anybody who changes any of this stuff. This stuff was really each one of them put in there to solve an individual's problem, and that really never came up again. Somebody wanted the ability to disable the startup shortcut, so we said yes, you can have that. Turn off a desktop shortcut here. If you don't want the installer to enable a desktop shortcut, then turn that on, and it won't. The welcome screen, typically when you run an Install Shield installer, it pops up with a big welcome screen that says, hey, welcome to Install Shield, and we're going to install this software. And then the only option on it is OK, which is silly, so I just gave you the ability to turn it off. I don't like seeing it. Disabling the destination screen, I turned that to yes. Typically, an Install Shield installer will tell you it's about to install in a certain place and then give you the option to change the place. I don't want to do that because I have to do tech support for these guys, and I want to know where the software is installed. So I don't give them the ability to change the location. If you want them to have that ability, just turn that off. It's on by default. The rest of these, I see little or no use for it. You can call if you have questions about it or check with tech support. We'll be glad to tell you what it's for. Things like, well, this one you might want to use to test the installer. if you turn this to yes, if you're trying to build the best installer you can, and you're real picky about how it operates, you may want to test it over and over again without having to actually install the software. That way you don't have to uninstall the software. It just runs the installer without installing anything, and it shows you all of the features you turned on or off here. If you want to test your installer like this, turn this on, build your installer, and it'll run, but it won't install the software, which means you don't have to uninstall it to run it again. And then when you've got it exactly the way you want it, set that to no. You may want to look at this one. This turns off the create an updated emergency key file prompt. There is when you install the client software, it gives you the option to, and I suggest you tell your customers to take the option to create an emergency key file. The emergency key file is actually 2 files, and it gets written to the location that you tell it to. These 2 files contain everything that the software needs to be able to reset itself in an emergency. So if you completely lose the computer that the remote backup software is on, and you need to reinstall it and then do a disaster recovery to restore the files from the RBS server, all you need is that key file. If you've got the key file, you can just give it to the software when you install it again, and it'll read there, and then it'll reset itself exactly the way it was. It is, however, a bit of a security risk, because if there's a prompt on the screen that says create an updated emergency key file, somebody can just go over there with a USB stick and plug it into the computer and create that, write it out to the USB stick, and then they've got the keys to your data. So I have that turned off by default. You can turn it on if you want. This turns on and off a pause button on the progress screen. I like to have that off, but it really doesn't matter. This one's similar to the key file prompts. The software can have a prompt that will ask you if you want to print a disaster recovery info screen, and that's an actual screen that can be printed on a piece of paper that contains the printed form of the password, the username, the encryption key, the encryption format, the group number. It's everything. That, again, is everything that the software needs to reset itself in printed form. So you can type all that stuff in. It is just the key file in printed form. That's all it is. I have that turned off by default because, again, security risk. Install as a Windows service. This is set by default to no. I like to set it to ask. Because the client software, in my opinion, the client software really should be included as, really should be installed as a service in most cases. If you say ask there, then during the installation, it'll ask you if you want to install it as a service. If you say yes, which is also a great option, it'll just install it as a service without asking anything. Start mode. You may or may not know this. There are 2 interfaces to the client software. One of them we call the simple interface, and one of them we call the advanced interface. The simple interface is more modern. It's got some graphics. It's got very few controls on it, and it looks more like things you'd see out in the marketplace, like Mozy and Carbonite. It's a simple, user-friendly interface with not too many buttons, just the main ones. Now, if you're a geek like me, you like to look at the advanced interface, which is which really was migrated from Windows 98. It looks like a Windows 98 interface, and it actually was. We've just maintained it because it's so blistering fast, and it's got all the controls right up front where you can see it. If you're one of those that are going to install all of the client software for your end users, I recommend that you set this to simple, but when you get on site with it, you can change from the simple interface to the advanced interface, and you'll use that one to set it up. And then before you leave, switch it back to simple. That's all the users need to see. Setup command line is one of those things that I have not used in literally 10 years. The pre-batch file and the post-batch file, I don't think these get used enough. These are command files, regular DOS-like batch files that you can that the RB client software can run before and after each backup. You can also have batch files, individual batch files, one for each backup set. Look in the documentation. To see how to name those. You can create these to do all kinds of things. A lot of people have a pre-batch file that issues some net commands that would, for example, broadcast a message network-wide that says we're about to start a backup, and then at the end, the post-batch file, you issue a net command that would say backup's now finished. But you can do all sorts of things with that. I used in my recent blog article about how to use Mozy and Carbonite and Dropbox for storage space for our backup. I used the post-batch file to grab all of the cache files and copy them into the Mozy directory. So you can that works really well too. We've got a question. Odd wants to know, what's the name of the RBS service if you install the client as a service? It's called RB Client. Well, okay, that logged me out because I stayed on that screen too long. Let me get logged back in. Okay, we were at options, I think. No, advanced. Or we'll get back up sets. Where were we? Yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, click next. Okay, this is advanced. You probably want to leave most of these at the defaults. The transfer verification at end is faster, but file by file is more reliable. You have two choices here, and 90% of people use file by file. Log level is the level at which the logging for our backup happens. If you use standard logging, that's how it defaults. You can also use detailed, verbose, and trace, and these are just increasingly granular levels of logging. We may tell you to set it to trace or verbose if you have a tech support problem, and we want to have a look at the verbose logs or the trace logs. Processing by priority. This is the priority that the client software demands from Windows while it's running. You can set it to normal, you can set it to low, you can set it to high. If you set it to normal, this assigns normal priority to the backup application, which means it's not going to interfere with other programs very much. If you set it to low, it won't interfere with them at all. It'll stall when something else wants the CPU. If you set it to high, it runs faster, but then it slows the rest of the applications down. Normal is normal. Run schedule at startup. You may have noticed that when you run the our backup software, it pops up in the system tray down here. You've got an icon on the system tray for the application that stays running, and then above that you've got a schedule screen. The schedule shows you what the next backups are all about, and if you want that there, you say yes, and if you don't want it there, you turn it to no. Always store the catalog. For safety's sake, just set that to yes. This is if you want to hide the progress screen during scheduled backup. So if a backup launches during the daytime, this is an example of where you may want to do this. If you have to launch a backup during the daytime because, I don't know, maybe they have to turn their computers off at night, something like that, set this to on. Set it to yes. And what that'll do is it'll hide the progress screen, so it won't bother people. The progress screen pops up when the client software starts to run. If you turn this on, it won't start. Stealth mode, if you really want them to know nothing about it, turn that on. Stealth mode, when the software runs, it displays nothing, period. It doesn't display any icons. It doesn't display anything in the taskbar. It's just completely hidden, and it does its job just fine. It just won't show you anything about it being there at all. This is to exclude files by attributes. I have them all checked by default, so we don't want to back up hidden files or read-only files or system files or temporary files. Now this is some really nerdy stuff here. I'm going to go through some of these. Queue limit is the number of files that will be processed. This is the number of files that the client software will write into its local queue before it starts to transmit them to the server. So it'll store up, in this case, it'll process 250 files, and then it'll queue those out to the server one by one and begin to process the next 250 files. By processing, what I mean is it has to locate a file, determine if it needs to be backed up, compress it, encrypt it, check it, verify that it's still good, digitally sign it, check the signature, and then store the signature in a database and then move on to the next one. Subfolder limit is set to 5,000, and that is the number of files, backup files that the RBS server can store in its data. And let me show you what that looks like here on your actual or on your RBS server. Let's see, RBS demo. Okay, here we go with, this is the readout from your RBS server. When you store your files, when a customer sends your files, your RBS server files over the internet, the RBS server places them in a folder structure like this, where this account is named Demo, so his login name is Demo. Under this folder, it's got folder structures here. It's got a few files here. Some of these are indexes. Some of these are key escrow files. And within each of these folders are the actual packets. These are the files that have been backed up, or the pieces of files that have been backed up. As you can see, you can't tell what's what. There are this is digitally signed. It's got all kinds of. We've removed the file name. We've compressed it. We've encrypted. There's no way you can in this file. You can't open it. You can't use it, and it's 100% HIPAA compliant because the file names have been removed. Some software that does backups will compress and encrypt the data, but it won't remove the file names. And the file names contain personally identifiable healthcare information, like John's heart surgery from June 2003. That's more than HIPAA wants you to give away. So we're better than them. So anyway, the 5,000 limit. I'm sorry. The 5,000 limit that I was talking to you about is how many of these backup packet files will be stored in one folder. 5,000 is good. Keep it there. This is where you start to bust HIPAA. This is set to 0. This says show part of file names. You can set the number of characters that of the original file name that gets shown in this on the server. Let me go back to this and reduce this a little bit. So you can see that these are all of equal. These names are all of equal length, and that's for a reason. This data includes all kinds of things. It's coded. It includes a digital signature for the data that's underneath it, an original file size, and a native file size, date and time, all kinds of stuff is encoded into this name. But you can also include a few characters of the original file name. So if you enter like 12 here, then these file names are going to be 12 characters longer, and the original part, the first 12 characters of the original file name will be placed, I think it's at the beginning, maybe at the end. I think it's at the beginning though. So if you don't need HIPAA compliance, then you can put this to whatever you want, and it'll show the actual original file name here along with the encoded stuff that goes with it, and that way you can actually see what files are there. This turns off the scheduler, the schedule display. It doesn't turn off the scheduler. This tells you to retain how many session logs on the server. This tells you if you want to exclude temporary files, just leave it to yes. These are some options for bit backup. This is 10,000. Leave that at 10,000 unless we tell you to change it. Bit backup maximum memory usage is the amount of memory that's going to be used by the bit backup object, the one that does the bit backup processing, and this is the speed. the higher the speed you put here, the more CPU bit backup requires. Bit backup is a CPU-intensive operation. It's great at what it does, and it's the only one designed especially for online backup. All the rest of them were like diff and rsync and other things like that were designed to use disk to disk, not online like this. 8 is as high as it can go. Its default is 4. I usually keep it set to 8. Let's see. You've got maximum file size limit. This is the maximum length of a file that your client can back up. It's set to unlimited in this case, but here's an example of how you might want to use this. If you wanted to limit your user from, what have I done? If you wanted to limit your user from uploading movie files, then set that limit to, let me try to get back to where I got all trigger happy with the mouse here. Okay, then set this to 4 gigabytes or 3 gigabytes, 2 gigabytes, whatever. Set it to anything you want, and the maximum, the client software is going to ignore any file bigger than whatever you put here. This is a free space threshold. This is where if you've used a bit backup incorrectly, like used it to back up everything on the drive, it's going to get kind of big. The client software is going to start to warn you if you start to run out of disk space. These are the two big features that were introduced in the last major release that we had. This is to enable local backup and to enable cloud service. The RBackup client software can back up to your RBS server. That's correct. That's true. But with these two features, it can also, at the same time, back up to a local mirror. That's a drive or any kind of shared space or even unshared space in the local environment. And it can also send off to a cloud service like Mozy or Carbonite, in case you want to do that. To enable those features, just click Enable here and here, and tell it where you want to. Tell it where you're going to put those. Alrighty, let me go back to the top. Okay, and then the registration wizard. I don't know, you can use it or not use it. The registration wizard, I'm going to turn it on for now. The registration wizard modifies the installer with, it adds a set of wizard screens to the front of the installer, and it queries the user. It asks a few questions. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens, 6 screens that the user goes through. There's an introduction. You can say you could put your introduction here. You can then it asks for user information, and then it asks for a user login or password. And you can either have the user enter that, or you can have it determined at random. The registration wizard will assign it. You can predefine it on the server, or you can use the email address of the user as the username. And this is the username that shows up on the RBS server and the username that's in all of the reports. The registration wizard collects all of this information, and then it transmits it to the server, and it starts an account for this user automatically. So if you use the registration wizard, you can have a lot of control over how people sign up for your service, and you don't have to preload their information on the server because the registration wizard can do it on the fly. If you want to make this completely automated, so the user has to enter hardly anything, you can say random here for the username and random here for the password, so the user won't have to enter a username or password at all. It'll just be generated. Let's see, this is the connection information, and that pulled from the other screen that we had over there. And then this is the online registration. And then this is the finish screen. And you can also, there are images here too. I'll show you the images. These are the images that show up on the left side of the wizard as it runs. You can change all these to customize them. Okay, I'm going to turn this off for now. Okay, now we've been through all of the registration screens, We've branded it, we've changed some text, we've changed backup sets, we've changed all kinds of stuff. The only thing left to do now is to build the installer, so I'm going to click this. I'm going to build only the server edition of the installer. I'm going to call it Webinar, and I'm going to click Build. So what it's doing now is the portal is selecting all of that stuff that we changed, all the company name, all of the new graphics that we did. It's selecting all of those, and it's putting them into a single exe file. It's designating the exe file as a server edition. And then once it gets finished with that, it'll use the built-in Class 3 code signing certificate to sign the executable. So when people download it from the internet, Windows won't complain. And I told you I was going to show you that too, so I am going to do that as soon as this gets built. And if there are any questions, now would be a good time for me to answer them, because this is going to take about another minute and a half to finish. I think, let's see, what does, well, all right, that finished pretty quick. Two things just happened. The installer, I'm sorry, the portal has built the installer, and it's given me a download link here. So I can click this and download it if I want to, but it's also copied the installer that we just made and the CL update file into my personal file download section. So rather than download it now, I'm going to go over to the download installers section. And here are the two installers that just got created. It built this installer, the one I asked for, and then, like I said earlier, it created the CL upgrade installer updater, which can update everything. From this screen, I have the option to download it. I can trash it. I can email a link to it to somebody else. One of my customers wants to install this. I can email him a link right from here, and he'll be able to click it, and it'll download this installer and install it for him. All right, let's download it so I can show you what happens. Okay. Okay, this is Firefox, and so it's got this little countdown timer here. Ben wants to know, can you build an installer that would be on my website for new clients to download as a trial? Yeah, you sure can. You can download. You can designate it as a trial account. All right, let's see what happens here. 5 seconds. Okay, that's all downloaded. Now I'm going to click it to install it. All right, two things happen. Look at this down in the lower right. This is my virus protection system, the Symantec Cloud. I love this thing. What it's done is it's just scanned the executable, and it's determined that it's safe, primarily because it has a valid code signing certificate attached to it. And right here, Windows has discovered that too. It says the publisher is Online Holdings, that's us, and it's you know, that's pretty clear. If it didn't have the digital signature on it, then you'd get some more warnings, especially from Windows 7 and above. They really like to warn you about files. And it's a little off-putting to some customers, so we really like to code sign everything. Okay, I'm not going to run this because I know when I do, it's going to ask me to reboot the computer. So what I did was, before the webinar started, I downloaded and installed it here, so I'm going to show you that right now. And here it is. This says start the RBackup client, and look, it's got our little icon on it, the one that we built. So I'm going to double click this, and when it pops up, look, it's all branded. And also down and look in the lower right of the screen, it's got the icon there too. So I can left click it and pick Open Client. Got the little icon there. And that's the simple interface. And there's the company name, the software name that we typed in there. And that's that. And then I think if I click this, I'll get the help file. Yeah, I'll get the help file. You can also brand the help file and upload it here too. I'm not going to have time to show you that today. Okay, let's go back to the portal. There was one thing, if anybody can remind me, there was one thing I told you I was going to go back and show you. And, oh, it's this. It's right here. It's build the installers. Upgrade all clients to not. Okay, look. I've just built, this is back on, I'll show you where this is. This is back on the download installers page. And this is how you turn on client upgrades. It's off by default. So when it's off, clients are not going to be able to upgrade from here. The reason for that is that we don't want to just automatically upgrade all of your clients. That's for you to do, not for us. So when we issue a software upgrade, we want you to be happy with it, to have tested it, make sure it works before you push it out to your clients. So it's up to you to push this out to your clients. And the way you do that is you build it to create this CL upgrade file, and then you turn this on. There you go. Now, any of my clients that are of a lower version number than this one, which is 11.09.004, are all going to be updated. And they'll get updated, probably all of them within the next 48 hours, because it checks once a day. Let's see, what else? I think that's it. That is it. I don't think there's anything else I can show you about this. If you have any questions, let's see. Ben wants to know if he should delete all the old CL upgrade files in the portal. That's a good one. No, don't, because it's always going to take the latest one. If you want, you can delete them, and that's easy enough to do. You just click them all like this, and then you pick action for selected is to delete, and you click delete, and OK. That'll delete them all. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. You have a limited amount of storage space. Each of your portal accounts comes with, I think it's 2 gigabytes of storage space, but that's kind of a lot because these guys aren't very big. This is 31 megabytes, so it's not too big. But of course, you've also got the built-in file sharing system. That's this one, which is in the portal, and this also takes from your 2 gigabytes. You can upload anything you want here and then send a link to it to anybody else, kind of like Dropbox, and that's all free. Brian wants to know if the update requires user attention. Brian, it can, and that's all up to you. If you tell it, there's 3 things you can tell the installer, the updater to do. You can tell it to update the software without asking, silently. You can tell it to pop up a message on the screen that says there's an update that's needed, and here's a link to download it. And you can pop up another message that says there's an update, and click this link for more information. By default, the way the portal does it is it pops up a menu, it pops up a screen that says there's an update, and click here to get it. And the reason we do that, again, is because we don't want to reboot the server. If this is running on a critical server, sometimes it does need to reboot, and depends on what components we've had to update. If some of the stuff we have to update are Microsoft components and they're shared and in use by something else on that server, then the InstallShield platform that we use to install this is going to want to reboot it. So the last thing we want to do is reboot that machine without telling anybody. So we just pop up the message. Let's see. Brian also wants to know if you can set the update time for the silent update. No. Great idea, though, and I've made a note of it. Nobody's asked that yet. That is a great idea. Hey, I'm at the end of this, but I've got an announcement to make for those of you who are still here. The next release of our software, nobody knows this yet, the next release of our software is almost ready to be pushed out. I expect it out next week, and it's going to be called 11.10.0 because it's got some pretty fancy features built into it. They are beta features for now, at least for the first month, but you're welcome to use them. One of them is a built-in bare metal backup and restore function. With this feature, you'll be able to use our backup to schedule a complete image backup of your server. It'll generate a VHD file that is directly mountable. So one of the things you can do with that is you can mount it. If the server goes down, you just mount the VHD file on another machine, and it'll run. You can also restore that file to a blank disk, and it'll restore it bootable, just like the server existed before. That's one feature coming out. Another one is the ability to back up VMware and Hyper-V online. We've got that ability built into it. So you'll be able to run RB Client on the host machine and back up the virtual machines independently, and those will be backed up and restored. I don't think, or they can be mounted. We've also got another new feature called NetReady. NetReady is an option that you can select instead of, it's on the scheduler, it's the last one on the scheduler. NetReady will launch a backup if, as soon as the internet gets connected to it. So this is will be real useful for example, laptops that are traveling and they're not attached to the internet all the time. If you plug them into the internet at the end of the day in a hotel, the software just wakes up and does a backup, launches that way. And there's a handful of other really cool things coming out. So I want you to watch your email, watch our website for that probably next week. Let's see, let me look at there's some final questions here. Let's see. Oh yeah, recording. We have recorded this session, and I'm going to post it on I'm going to show you where I'm going to post it. This session's been recorded. It's going to be on support. Let's see, downloads, multimedia. It'll be on the downloads and multimedia page under recorded webinars. Okay, if I didn't get to your question, will you please email me? If you just email me your question, I'm Rob at remote-backup.com. Peter, the cost for the bare metal, Peter asked, the cost for the bare metal feature, when we first roll it out, it's going to be included. It's going to be free. So I hope it stays that way. The only thing that's going to make us start charging for it is if it becomes a real headache for our tech support. If a lot of people can't use it, or it's too complicated, or we get called at 3 a.m. because somebody needs to do a bare metal restore and they're freaking out, and they just want us to do it. If all that starts happening, we're going to have to charge for it if it increases our costs. But right now, I hope not. I hope we could give that away as a feature of the server edition of the client software, along with the VHD backups, the virtual machine backups, and all the other goodies. Again, it all comes out as beta first, so you'll have the ability to try it, test it. If you like it, let us know, and if you don't like it, let us know why, and we'll go back to the drawing board on it. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Email me if I didn't get to your questions, Rob at remote-backup.com. Watch your email on the website for the new release, and thanks very much.